everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to introduce you to our two guest speakers who are going to be talking about their ALS Nutrition App. Dr. Marie Wills, MD, MPH, is a neurologist specializing in neurodegenerative disease such as Parkinson's, PSP, and ALS. She received her BA from Princeton University, her MD from Columbia College Physicians and Surgeons, and her MPH from Harvard School of Public Health. She completed her specialty training in the Partners Neurology Residency Program, a combined program between Massachusetts General Hospital and Brigham and Women's Hospital. She has been on staff at MGH since 2006. Dr. Wills' research focuses on environmental risk factors and determinants from neurodegenerative disease progression, including nutrition, caffeine, and pesticides. Her multi-center clinical trial of nutrition in ALS, funded by the Muscular Dystrophy Association, showed that a calorie-dense diet was better tolerated and led to fewer adverse events, including deaths, than a standard diet. She is also investigating the effects of exercise interventions for neurodegenerative diseases. She is the director of Cure PSP Center of Care at MGH, which provides multidisciplinary care for people with progressive supranuclear palsy. She is a member of the Movement Disorder Society, the Parkinsonian Study Group, or PSG, the Northeast ALS Consortium, and the American Academy of Neurology. She is a co-director of the Genes Environmental Working Group of the PSG, co-founder of the Atypical Parkinsonian Disorders Working Group of the PSG, and the PI of several clinical trials in Parkinsonian diseases and PSP. Mansi Sharma is a clinical research coordinator at the Massachusetts General Hospital. She received dual BS degrees in biotechnology and mathematics, along with a minor in neuroscience. She is currently a student at Harvard University Extension School, earning a master's degree in biotechnology and bioinformatics. She has been working with Dr. Marie Wills since January 2019 in a neurological clinical research movement disorders. Their research involves clinical trials for PSP and ALS. She will be applying to med school in the near future and is an aspiring neurologist. Without further ado, here are our two guest speakers.
I just wanted to say hi to everyone. I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully everyone can see this. When I started working at MGH in ALS, I noted this strong clinical observation of the amount of the significance of weight loss in this disease. I think everybody who has the illness knows that it is associated with weight loss due to several factors. There's a hypermetabolic component where people are actually burning more calories than you would expect. And then there's also the difficulty getting enough calories in. This is challenging from multiple directions. And that weight loss, which can really be really striking, also has an effect on disease progression and survival. And that was already known before I started doing this work, but one of our earliest papers really showed that there was a significant survival benefit to being obese. And so not just overweight, but actually obese, having a BMI between 30 and 35. So I designed a clinical trial. This was actually quite a long time ago now, where and this was the paper that was published in the Lancet, where we were able to randomize people to different amounts and types of tube feeds in a totally blinded way. Because people were, receiving all their feeds through their tube, people were not unblinded by flavor or taste or anything like that. And so we were able to randomize people to Gevity 1.5, or this really high fat diet called Oxipa, it turns out that the people in red here who did the best were the Jeopardy 1.5 group. And they were receiving more calories, calorically dense tube feeds. And the Jeopardy 1.0 group were in the green here, and they had the worst outcome. So this I thought was really good evidence that if we were able to increase people's calories, if we were able to get people to eat more, we would be able to make a dent on disease progression and survival. And so I'll just put a little background in here. This is a slide from Ed Kasarskis. Basically, the idea is if you lose weight, you're not just losing fat, you tend to be losing muscle as well. And so that muscle loss will accelerate, we believe, will accelerate the muscle loss that's happening from neuronal loss as well. So we really want to try to avoid that. And my colleague, Dr. Kasarskis, he did a very nice study in which he calculated sort of carefully using a doubly labeled water experiment. So he was able to really sort of measure exactly how many calories people were burning. And he came out with a formula here, which is, not that easy to use, on a daily basis. And he did put it together into a calculator, which you can see here, mednet.mc.u Kentucky or uky.edu. So people can, dietitians, for example, can calculate their patients' needs sort of on the fly. This sort of shows you what you have to do. There's 6 questions from the ALS FRSR that go into that calculation. And here's an example of somebody who's gone through that calculation. So this is a fairly large male. The Harris Benedict would predict that this person would only need 1,600 calories, but with the Kasarskis addition of how many calories you need for ALS, turns out that person needs 2,500 calories, which is, as you know, is a lot higher than sort of the average estimated 2,000 calories a day. So I think this is a really good tool for calculating how many calories you really need when you have ALS. So one of the projects that Mansi and I have been working on is to create an easier way of calculating and figuring out how many calories people need. And to do that, we actually did a clinical trial, again, a randomized, this is open label clinical trial at MGH, where we took everybody who came to the clinic and we offered them either in-person dietary counseling using an app, where the app would give them some calorie goals and ping them when it was time to enter their dietary intake, or standard of care, which in our institution, it involves doctors, nurses, and a speech-language pathologist giving advice about avoiding weight loss. But we don't actually have a registered dietitian in our clinic. And most ALS clinics around the country do not have a dietitian as part of the multidisciplinary care team. And that's part of the problem, is that the dietitian is not reimbursed by insurance for seeing people with ALS. So this is one of the things that I wanted to try to overcome using technology. So in this trial, we were actually able to show that people who were in the app arm, so people who had, we gave them iPads, and then they would enter their dietary intake into the iPad. So people who had that sort of constant reminder to enter what they were eating and pay attention to what they were eating seemed to eat more, at least at the 3-month mark. And then they also had a slightly different decline in their ALS FRSR. And this did not reach significance, in part because it was a small single-center study, but also because we had, a bit of dropout, unfortunately, between month 3 and month 6. But we were optimistic that this is a safe and hopefully effective way of slowing the disease. And given the prior Lancet study and then this study, we felt like we had, enough evidence that it was worth going ahead and really recommending dietary intervention for everybody. So in order to achieve that, we created this app, which Mansi is going to run through and sort of show people how to download onto their phones and how to install and use. And so this app it was sponsored by the ALS Association, and it is a bunch of things, which Mansi will show you, but basically it allows you to calculate how many calories you need. It syncs with a diet diary, such as Bite Snap, something that allows you to easily keep track of how many calories you're eating. It has tips from our registered dietitians. So we have 2 dietitians who have been working on the research arm for us, and they came up with hundreds of tips, which they would give to patients. And so we incorporated those into this app. Also hundreds of recipes, which Mansi entered into the app so people can look for them. We do have special recipes for dysphagia. Those are, softer foods. One caveat I should mention, though, is that the app is not specifically designed for people who have tube feeds. You can use the Kasarskis equation to calculate your tube feed goals, but most people who have tube feeds are already working with a dietitian, or they should be. So we did not want to come between a dietitian and their patient. So we're specifically making this app for people who are not already working with a dietitian and don't already have tube feeds. So this is really more for people who are still eating most of their calories by mouth. We do recommend, we do screen people for dysphagia symptoms as part of the app. We do recommend that you go to the ALSA website that has a really good section on dysphagia, how to manage dysphagia and dysphagia recipes. If you do develop dysphagia, we did put the dysphagia recipes in here, but we don't, this is not in place of speech language pathologist or a registered dietitian who might help with dysphagia issues. And then we do have other research add-ons to the app. You do not have to participate in research. You can just use the app. But if you're willing to participate, we would love to have information on disease progression and calorie intake and what kind of foods people are eating, which are being recorded by the app. So you can choose, you can opt in to share your information with us if you want. You don't have to. And these are just some of the disclaimers that I mentioned. I'll also mention if you have diabetes or a history of stroke, please don't use the app. Please work with a dietitian. Do encourage people to gain weight through the app. So we don't want people who have diabetes to be gaining a significant amount of weight. And I think I'm going to hand the screen over now to Mansi to go through the actual nitty-gritty of how to download.
So hi everyone, I hope everyone can see me. I'm just gonna put my screen up. Thank you, Dr. Wills, for the introduction. So yeah, so I'll go through and just show you how to download the app. So I'll just play this. Let's see. Okay. I hope everyone can see this. So just going off based on what Dr. Wills said, so the app itself has nutritional goals, it has tips to eat more calories, over 100 different recipes made by MGH dietitians. It'll monitor your symptoms, and then there's also the option of joining research or just using the app without joining research. So I'll just go directly into how to download the app. So the first thing to do is actually download My Data Helps, who is actually our app developer. So to find the ALS Nutrition app, you have to download this first. And there are a couple of ways to do it. It's all based on preference. I would say one of the easiest ways is just using your app store, whether you have Android or Apple, and just type in My Data Helps, and this screen should pop up. And so you can download it that way. You can also use a QR code. So if you're very tech savvy and like that option, you can use that as well. So you just use your camera and then show that QR code, and it'll automatically pop up where you can download My Data Helps. And similarly, there are also links that you can use if you use the links in your phone. And again, specific to Android and Apple, you can use those as well to get the same screen to download My Data Helps. So once you do that, then you can go ahead and find the ALS Nutrition app. And there are, again, a few ways to do it based on preference. And one of the ways is this QR code. And so I've put the QR code that you can use to find the ALS Nutrition app directly. So once you download My Data Helps, you'll get this screen like here. So if you click scan code, you can, and you all can do this along with me. I'll go slow, so you all can do this with me. And if you think I'm going too fast, let me know. So if you click scan code, it'll just show a camera will pop up, and you can show that QR code there, and that'll automatically open the ALS Nutrition app. And once it does, you can hit join, and then you can start enrolling into the app. Another way to do this, if you don't like the QR code method, that's okay. Another way to do it is this sign up method. So if you were to click sign up, you would just enter some demographic info. So you'll enter your first and last name, and they'll ask you for your choice of either email or phone number. So simple questions, and you'll get that either way, whether you scan the code or sign up, you'll get questions like that either way. And once you do, this screen will pop up where it says participate in research. And then you search for a research study, and actually without searching for, once you click that, it'll automatically show this screen. And you can just click on ALS Nutrition, and it'll come back to that same one that we saw on the last page. So either option works to find it. And again, hit join, and you'll just start enrolling into the app. So yeah, and that's how you download the actual nutrition app. And just in case, this is just an extra note, if you do the sign up method and if you get to this screen, you can also scan the code here and then use that same QR code on the previous slide. Both, all the ways works. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you can use. And as Dr. Wills mentioned, there is a food diary app that has to be used along with the ALS Nutrition app. And we recommend BiteSnap because we think it's the easiest and kind of the most fun, we think. Basically, with BiteSnap, you're taking pictures of everything that you eat. So you're logging everything that you eat. And just by taking a picture of it, it'll calculate the number of calories in that meal. And I'll go into detail about this at the end of the presentation. So right in here, I'm just showing you how to download. But BiteSnap is probably one of our favorite ones. If you want to download a food diary, we recommend this one. So same thing as before. You can, in your app store, you can search for BiteSnap, and you can download it that way. You can also download using the QR codes. And just important thing to know, there is a QR code for the iPhone if you have an iPhone, and if you have an Android, use the other one. And likewise, there's also the links that you can use if that's easier for you. So just go into your iPhone and then click on those links, and you can download it that way as well. So now I kind of want to show you what the ALS app looks like. So once you've done the downloading process, the hard part, then it kind of gets into the actual app. And also, like Dr. Wills said earlier, there's these tips of the day. You'll get calorie goals, you'll get recipes, nutritional information, etc. So I'll go through everything that's in the app. But this is the interface. When you download the app, this is what you see. And first off, you see the tip of the day that Dr. Wills mentioned. And basically, MGH dietitians actually made a long list of those. So every day you'll get a different tip to better your nutrition or increase your calorie goals. So for instance, this day it was keep snacks small and portable. So just simple tips like this, but it goes a long way. And the calorie goal. So again, there is this equation called Kaskarskis calorie equation calculator for ALS. And the way that's calculated is actually by your current weight and certain questions in the ALS FRS are. And so the app automatically does that on its own. And so it's a personalized calorie goal that's calculated. And in your app, you'll actually always see your calorie goal that you're expected to eat. And that's based on like the weight that you'll input and the ALS FRSR score that you had. And you can also see your data, so your latest FRSR score and your latest weight. One thing I will mention is the weight is the one thing that's done weekly. And the reason I say that, and it's better that way, is because that way your calorie goal is more accurate. So it, and every time you input your weight, your calorie goal will change based on the correct amount or based on the equation. And you'll see that in your app. This is kind of the fun part. So we also have this recipe navigator, and again, MGH dietitians put together these recipes, particularly high calorie recipes, and some of them are dysphagia. It helps if you struggle with swallowing. These are also good options for you. And in the app, if you look at the app itself, you can click on Open Recipe Navigator, and it takes you to this recipe. It shows you the screen, and you have options from breakfast, snacks, soup, entree, side, smoothie, and juice recipes. And so I'm just giving a demo, an example here, but if you wanted some breakfast recipes and picked maybe the apple cinnamon slow cooker oatmeal, it'll give you the serving size, it'll give you the ingredients, it'll give you the directions. And there's more breakfast recipes. If you scroll down, you'll see more. Basically, it's all in the app. So just clicking the Open Recipe Navigator will allow you to go through it. And there's also handy, and this is always available to you if you have the app, just nutritional information and managing symptoms. So nutritional information regards the different food groups and the fruits and the vegetables and the grains, and even within them, there's like tips of how to add these into your daily nutrition that you have and what you eat. And I'll give you certain food groups and certain foods that you should be eating. And in managing symptoms, it actually gives you ways to kind of prevent and manage things like constipation, dehydration, or saliva. So I kind of give an example here for constipation. If you click on the constipation one, you'll get a screen like this. And I'll show you, how to stay hydrated, how to have fiber to prevent constipation, and how to manage it when you are constipated. So things like this is actually very handy, and if it ever helps you, you can always go here, and it's always accessible to you. And tasks. So this part's important because one thing I do want to say is it's actually not very time consuming at all. It should probably be only about like 5 to 7 minutes per month. That's it. So not very quick, very easy. But whether you use the app for research or whether you use it for if you're just using it for the app itself and not participating in research, the two things that are actually mandatory is the dysphagia questionnaire and the functional rating scale. And again, that's because the ALS functional rating scale, or the FRSR, is actually what allows you to calculate that calorie goal. So that's a necessity, so that you know what your calorie goal is. And dysphagia questionnaire is kind of just to make sure and kind of see how everyone is doing. It's kind of checking on your difficulty with swallowing, and based on your questions, if they see that there is some difficulty, the app will tell you to go contact your provider so that you get the assistance and the help that you need. So those two are mandatory, and then I'll talk about the tasks within research. So if you do participate in research, there are a few tasks that you only have to do monthly, and they're very, very quick. It should only probably take, the monthly research task should only take about 3 minutes total in a month. So the 3 that you do is the tapping test, sustained phonation, and a global health quality of life. So the tapping test is basically seeing like your ability to move your fingers, and sustained phonation, as it was in the previous page. Oops, sorry about that. Sustained phonation is the voice one, that's here. Again, it takes a minute. And the last one is the global health quality of life, basically just general questions about your quality of life and how you're doing overall. So yes, if you participate in research, these very quick questionnaires, they have to do once a month. And I just wanted to quickly, before we go on to the BiteSnap app, and kind of show you the inside of it. Oops. Oopsies, sorry about that. Okay. And so the BiteSnap app is, if you go into our ALS app initially, so you can actually click Update Goal in BiteSnap. And so whatever the calorie goal is calculated for your individual personalized nutritional value, that goal can also be updated in the BiteSnap app as well. And just how to use it, it's very, very easy. Like we said, food, and it'll recognize what you're eating and calculate the number of calories in it. So this is actually something that Dr. Wills had tried here. So she just taken a picture of some chicken that she got, and it tells you how many calories are in it, and it also tells you the amount of carbs, fat, and protein in terms of percentages, and how far, how close away you are to your target value. So again, very easy to use. And if you go into the BiteSnap app as well, if you go into preferences and sync data with health app, well, you'll be able to sync the ALS Nutrition app with the BiteSnap very easily. So it's just this that'll make it very simple. And if you have any sort of feedback, you're allowed to do this within the app itself. So this is again the home screen for the app, so you can submit feedback, any sort of feedback you have for us, feel free to let us know. And any questions you have, this is whether you're using the app or not using the app, any questions you have, you can always email us at mghalsapp@partners.org, or call us this phone number at any time with any sort of technical difficulties or just how to use the app. You can always contact us at any point. And that's it. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening in. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, thank you so much. I just downloaded the app. That took seconds.
And Caitlin, I want to thank you, Jen, and I know Shannon left, but thank you guys so much for coordinating this. Y'all were very helpful.
Well, that was very informative. Does anybody, I know everybody's muted right now, but does anybody have any questions about any of this information that was just shared?
Can you show the QR code to download the app again?
Of course, yes, I will pop it up. So this is the one for the My Data Helps. Oops, sorry. Are you able to see this one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure how to use it.
No problem. So if you go to your camera, if you click on camera on your phone, literally you just put the camera so that it shows that QR code, and it should pop up on its own.
Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, it's a new technology. So.
Wow.
But yeah, you can do it either way.
I just tried it.
That's a good thing. There's different ways of doing it. So there's the QR code method. There's the way where you can just you can search for it within your app store also, and you can also use the links. So whatever you feel comfortable with, you can do.
I always thought that I had to download some sort of QR thing to be able to go in with it, and I had no idea you could do that from the camera.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really easy. It's actually, once you know how to do it, it's really easy.
Wow.
And then actually, I know you were asking to get to the ALS app. The next steps are here if you need it.
Thank you.
No problem. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free.
Hello, it's Jen. I actually have a couple of questions for you, if you can entertain those.
Sure, Jen.
One, so we had a dietitian on last week, and one of the things that we've been discussing a little bit is and you brought it up too, Dr. Wills, is hypermetabolism. Do we have, and one of the questions that one of our members asked of the dietitian was if we're aware of, do we know why this is occurring in some people with ALS? I think it's more than half. But why is hypermetabolism occurring in ALS?
Yeah, it's complicated. So we have a couple clues. One is, my personal hypothesis is that it has to do with the fact that, when you have ALS, not only are you losing neurons, you're also growing your existing neurons back into the muscle in order to compensate. So there's this constant sprouting and regeneration of existing neurons. And I think that takes a lot of work. And so, like, when you look at the ALS mouse, the SOD1 mouse model, those mice are about 15%, burn about 15% more calories than like normal healthy mice. So definitely the familial ALS we think is related to the SOD1 model. And so that's really been shown quite well. Ed Kasarskas' doubly labeled water experiment showed that people are indeed hypermetabolic as well. And in terms of like sort of getting down to the nitty gritty of sort of exactly how that's happening, what aspects of growth or regeneration are contributing, we don't know for sure. We also suspect that people are not absorbing the calories that they are consuming in a normal way. So people who have ALS tend to have very slow gut motility, and we suspect that there may also be some malabsorption going on, although there's no evidence of diarrhea in the illness. So I can't say 100% for sure. Certainly this is an observation that we're very confident of. And you're absolutely right. People who lose weight and are hypermetabolic tend to have a faster disease progression as well.
Thank you very much for that. My second question, if I can add another one in here, is your dysphagia questionnaire on the app. Which questionnaire are you using, or is it just kind of more of a generic type of thing?
Yeah, so when we came up with this app, this was actually before Dr. Plowman's work on the EAT-10. And so at that point, Paige Nalipinski and Stacy Sullivan, who are speech language pathologists in the clinic, I went to them to ask, is there anything that we can do that's like a self-reported questionnaire, screening questionnaire. And so they gave me a whole bunch of the questions that they used in the clinic. And then I put those together into a survey, which we gave to everybody in the clinic. And then we whittled those down. We compared it to their in-person assessment of dysphagia. And so we whittled it down to 5 questions, which we found to be most predictive of true dysphagia, and we put that into this app. I have to admit, and this is terribly embarrassing, but we haven't actually published the questionnaire, so it's not. The good thing is it's very short and it's very fast, and it does look at some upper motor neuron symptoms. So you know how like the EAT-10 was designed just in general, it's all comers, so it has a lot of people with head and neck cancers and non-neurologic causes of dysphagia, and none of these surveys actually look at the upper motor, like the choking on, like for example, Paige finds that when people cough or choke after eating like something spicy or drinking something with a seltzer in it, she finds that that's really, really predictive of like bulbar upper motor neuron dysfunction. And so that's one of the questions that we have in there. So it's true. I apologize. This is not ideal. In retrospect, maybe we should have used the EAT-10. But the EAT-10, I think, has its own limitations in terms of its sensitivity and specificity as well. So our little five item question ended up being as sensitive and specific as EAT-10.
I agree with you about the EAT-10 actually, and I think there's some questions on the E10 that are really not specific to
Right.
ALS folks. So no, that's a very valid point. And so the other one that came about a little bit later was Richard Smith's Center for Neurologic Study.
Oh, the CNS-BFS,
He has a series of
Yeah.
smaller questions on there too.
Yeah.
And I know we've done a poster looking at how well that matches up against swallowing function on video fluoroscopy, but I'm encouraging one of my colleagues from Dr. Plowman's lab to publish that data, because that would be another potential ALS-specific patient-reported questionnaire that may have better clinical utility than the E10.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I think it's also quite a long questionnaire, as I recall.
The CNS-BFS, the swallowing part, I think, is 7 questions. So I think if you do the whole thing, I believe it's 21, 7 speech, 7 swallowing, and 7 saliva, sialuria questions. But I think if you just did the swallowing part, it would be 7, I believe, off the top of my head.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you guys are doing with the video fluoroscopy is ideal. I wish, in retrospect, that we had done that with our brief survey. That's actually been sort of our barrier to publication, is that people don't feel that a clinical bedside evaluation is adequate validation. But what we wanted to do was just use it as sort of a trigger to let people know sort of when they should contact their speech language pathologist or their clinician for a referral. So it's meant to just be a very brief and highly, it is actually quite sensitive. You use just one positive answer, then it's very, very sensitive, even though it's not specific. Yeah.
I'm looking at the chats here. Jenny has a question, if I can share her question with y'all. Her question says, my mother eats everything blended. How come sometimes she suffers from constipation? Is it because of the type of food?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So there are 2 things going on, I believe. One is, so as I was mentioning, when people have the slow gut motility, it means that they're absorbing more of the water from the food. So that will lead to more constipation. So the solution to that really is to get more fiber into the water, as well as to try to get more liquid in a safe way, if that's possible. So sometimes people will add, for example, with tube feeds, often this is a problem, and you actually end up having to add supplemental fiber to the tube feed. If you're blenderizing everything, and I don't know if you're able to like blenderize vegetables and things in as well to try to get a little bit more of that undigestible fiber in, that may help.
Wonderful.
Caitlin, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Jenny said thanks. Any other questions, related, unrelated, while we're here? And I think everybody's muted, so if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Will you post this somewhere, this information?
I think what's going to happen next, since this is recorded, is we're going to send it over to the person who makes everything look beautiful and edits all of the video footage that we have, and we're probably going to share it on Facebook, but I'm sure once everything's put together in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to send it out directly to people that request it.
Okay, yeah, it would be useful to have this with the PowerPoint basically, or just a summary of it, rather than the video, because it's when you're trying to fast forward through a video just to get back to the screenshots and stuff. That
Sure.
Also, I'm not on Facebook, so so we should just request it directly from Shannon.
I'm going to write this down for you, Jane. Let's see.
Caitlin, can I suggest something? If you want, Caitlin, I have this PowerPoint. I can send it to you, so everybody, you can send it to whoever needs it.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much.
No problem, Jane.
All
We
right.
also have a YouTube channel that we're building out now, so you wouldn't have to necessarily be on Facebook or something like that to access it. So the dysphagia talk that I gave at the beginning of the month, that I believe is currently on our YouTube channel, and so we can provide a link to that too. But I appreciate your thoughts about just having the PowerPoint available, so you don't have to, like you said, scroll through the whole video. You can just get to that. So either that or like a PDF format or something like that, where people can easily download those codes or scan the codes rather. I think that would be a great idea.
And I think I actually have that one too. I do believe that I have the PowerPoint right now for Mansi, so I can email that over to you.
And actually, if you just want the QR codes and things, we have some like advertisement brochures, both in email format and PDF. We have a couple ways. I don't know what would be easiest, but which specifically have the QR codes and the links to click on, if that would be easier.
Yeah.
That's fine too. Yeah, whichever format, but just so I can go back and kind of take it step by step, because I started downloading it, but then I saw there's this kind of many step registration process, so then I wasn't able to download the second thing. So I need to would like to have it in either format, brochure or whatever, so I can take it step by step.
Sure,
Yeah,
Jan, I'll
no
make
problem.
sure you have that.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure, Christina.
Okay, how important is the nutritive value of the calories? For example, I am mostly eating for pleasure right now and supplementing with the tube. So I only eat things that I really enjoy. Like I eat a lot of cake. In the carrot cake. It's somehow the perfect consistency. And I enjoy it. But yeah, I'm asking how important is healthy eating.
Sorry, so the app, it's true, is it is designed for people who are taking most of their calories by mouth. So if you're getting most of your calories by tube feed, even though you're eating by mouth, a little bit, we would say that the tube feed is really the number of calories that you would need. And if you want to use the Kasarskis equation for help with with those calorie calculations, you absolutely can. Although I do recommend that a registered dietitian work with you.
I'm trying something to make it easier. Hold on.
Sorry if I can get that right.
one night.
Okay.
Oh, healthy calories versus any calories. That's a great question. In our data, so the closest thing I can say is we tested regular calories, the Longevity 1.5 versus high fat calories. Way back when I was designing that Lancet study, there was some hypothesis that maybe fat would be particularly beneficial in terms of reducing CO2 production and things like that. And so we did that test. A really high fat diet was not particularly beneficial. Or at least it didn't do better than regular calories. So from what our dietitians tell people is, as long as you get enough of all your basic food groups in terms of protein, you can enjoy fat, you can enjoy ice cream, you can do anything you want really in terms of supplements and snacks and things like that in order to get enough calories in. So yes, we are, we encourage people to eat chocolate and anything really that you enjoy.
Awesome.
So it sounds like Christina can still eat carrot cake.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Any other questions? I don't want to sign us off too soon. If anybody had anything that they wanted to discuss today in the meeting. Nothing? All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Wills and Mansi, for joining us today. I really appreciate that. And I will send out that email to Jane if anybody else needs one. I can send that to you as well. If you want to just write in the chat, I can email you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you for
Thank you
everything.
so much, everyone.